also want to point out that as a result of the cleanup effort, beaches all along the Gulf Coast are clean, they are safe, and they are open for business.
As we approach the 4-year anniversary of the Deepwater Horizon disaster, BP oil is still being collected along Gulf Coast beaches. In the last 24 hours, more than half a ton of it has been pulled from the Gulf waters near Fort Pickens. News 5's Debbie Williams has details as our coastal recovery continues.
The turquoise waters of the Gulf of Mexico wash ashore on part of the Gulf Island National Seashore near Fort Pickens.
It's a pretty remote area out there.
It's also considered a hotspot for residual oil from the 2010 BP oil spill. On Thursday, that reputation was confirmed.
I don't know if it was just because of the sand shifting around or low tide or what, but this mat was just exposed right in front of us.
You can see how clear the water is, and during a routine monitoring of the beach, the tar mat was spotted out there about 7 feet off the surf line in about 3 feet of water.
There's still some out there if you know where to look.
These photos show crews digging the tar mat out of the water. It covered an area 9 feet long and 9 feet wide and was anywhere from 5 to 7 inches thick. Dominic Marcanio helped dig it out.
Thursday we found 1,250 pounds that were removed by hand, and then we went back today just to make sure we got it all, and we picked up another 100 pounds.
3 days a week, Marcanio and other Florida Department of Environmental staff walk the beaches looking for tar balls.
On an average survey day, we find about 3 pounds of oil, so to find 1,200 pounds in one day was pretty significant.
And one of the largest finds since the active monitoring of the beaches by BP ended in June of last year.
I want to show you what our beaches look like on Memorial Day weekend. This is the tide with this gelatinous, foul-smelling, chemical-smelling stuff on the shore here. We step down, well, we don't have to step much of anywhere, it's everywhere, and we see these large dark clumps, which are, guess what? soft, squishy tar balls. This is oil, ladies and gentlemen. This is the lingering BP 4 years later. This again is the shoreline with what I know to be dispersant foam, and it sure smells like it. There are various shades of brown, black, lots of dead everything. I don't see anything really living. There are some indications that there might be little critters burrowing in the sand, but I haven't seen yet a live hermit crab or anything at all in the water. Again, we have the dark black and rust colored residual here. We have more tar balls, which I photographed here just a moment ago. Still pictures. You'll see some more of that in a second. I'm not touching this stuff because it's known to make you very sick.
This is Denise Rednor. We are in Long Beach, Mississippi. Today is April 20th, 2015. It is the 5-year anniversary of the BP Deepwater Horizon disaster. The effects of this disaster, not only on the environment, which is of course quite obvious, the health effects. I want to talk about that for a minute. I haven't been down here but 5 minutes, and my eyes are watering and tearing. My throat is burning. The smell is, it burns your whole sinus passage, and it actually burns as you breathe in. It's not just a foul smell, it's a burning smell. It burns. This is, ladies and gentlemen, this is all tar balls. Take a look at this. Do you see what's seeping up out of the sand? The stench of chemicals is very, very, very strong in the air. There's no smell of seafood or fish or salt. But do you see these big dark spots? Guess what those are, folks. Guess what all of these are. You see that? See that? See this? The smell is nauseating, folks. It's nauseating. This is tar balls, tar balls, tar balls. See the size of my foot? I wear a 7.5. These are actually an 8. Do you see what we're looking at? Dead crab. Dead crab. Dead crab. This, ladies and gentlemen, is one huge tar ball. One huge tar ball. Again, do we see this? Okay, you'll see that some of this here is, in fact, chunks of concrete. When they continually bring in the sand that they scoop up from the roadsides, etc., to cover up the oil that's washed in, they are getting chunks of concrete. And
Hence, I mean, we don't have rocks in our water here. We don't have rocks, and we don't have all of that. And so this is chunks of concrete. This is not indigenous rock. Again, within here are chunks of tarballs. You see the black residue, the black seeping from the sand up through. And you see how some of it is concrete, some of it is oil in various stages of degradation, I guess you would call it. Some of it's very oozy thin, some of it is hard, almost like coal. And here's the residue of last night's tide with the dispersant. Here's still some more dead fish.
Unusual for these shrimp boats here at Grand Island to come up with this in their nets. This is known as a tarball. From the Corexit that was put on the surface to push the oil down, now all the oil is gathered like this and it's on the bottom and it ends up in shrimpers' nets.
Their tarballs pose an increased risk for the flesh-eating and deadly bacteria Vibrio vulnificus. Vibrio thrives in warm salt or brackish water, and one prominent scientist at Auburn says it also thrives in tarballs from the 2010 BP oil spill. Dr. Kova Arias is a professor of aquatic microbiology at Auburn University and an expert on the often deadly and sometimes flesh-eating bacteria Vibrio vulnificus. Arias' research at Auburn and through the school's lab at Dauphin Island has focused on Vibrio's impact on the oyster industry, an industry brought to a standstill 3 years ago by the BP oil spill. According to Dr. Arias' studies, there's 10 times more Vibrio vulnificus bacteria in these tar balls than in the surrounding sand, and 100 times more than in the surrounding water.
In general, they are like a magnet for bacteria.
Arias' theory is that Vibrio feeds on the microbes that are breaking down the tar. She and researchers looked at tar balls that washed into the same areas they had previously studied, so they could therefore make valid comparisons to before the oil spill.
What we also found was that in water, the numbers were around 10 times higher than the numbers that had been reported before from that area.
So the water alone had 10 times as much Vibrio as before the oil spill. And remember, the tar balls themselves had 100 times more Vibrio than the water. Vibrio is contracted through some sort of cut or abrasion on the skin, usually by the young or old or someone with a compromised immune system. But doctors who fight infectious diseases say the high levels of Vibrio should be taken seriously by everyone due to the random but deadly nature of this bacteria.
It'd be very little exposure, just kind of wrong place at the wrong time.
Tomorrow night we'll talk to beachgoers about this potentially very serious situation. Many of those we encountered were playing with tar balls, unaware of the Vibrio risk.
We picked up this oil right on Grand Terre Isle. This is nearly an exact match of Macondo well.
The product that you have in your hand does not pose a threat to human or aquatic life. This,
how do you know?
If it's Macondo oil, is now 5 years old and likely weathered beyond the point of being harmful.
But some scientists disagree.
The outside of this is weathered, but it starts to break apart over time, and the oil compounds, particularly those that are toxic to wildlife, fish, and other organisms, is still there.
I would say be really careful if you're going to go and expose yourself along the coastal area to the seawater.
Pictures and comments of Duvernay have been posted by his family and friends on Facebook since he died 5 days ago. Families say Duvernay had just returned from fishing and boating in the Gulf over the 4th of July weekend. By all accounts, he was a healthy man. Still, doctors say those with compromised immune systems are the most vulnerable. The Vibrio bacteria thrives in warmer waters. Summer water temperatures of at least 68 degrees are the perfect host for the bacteria. On the bottom line, if you spend time in the water and develop a rash, a wound that won't heal, or symptoms that just don't seem right, see your doctor or go to the emergency room. In Baldwin County, James Gordon, Local 15 News.
I would have never thought in a million years this would have happened to me.
Zach is lucky to be alive. He spoke to me from his hospital bed at Health Park Hospital.
The water had just splashed over my foot, and I didn't think anything about it.
The first symptoms flared up right after he went into the Gulf with a minor cut on his toe about a month ago.
I noticed that my foot was a little irritated, and it just had a little red spot on it.
But just 12 hours later, the pain became so unbearable, he checked himself into the hospital.
By the time that I got from downstairs to the operating room, there were these big, giant blood blisters on my foot.
The infection was quickly spreading up his leg. The photo's too graphic to show on TV.
It's really a surgical emergency. They need to get in and do a fasciotomy and clean out the fascial plane and maybe even amputation.
After 7 surgeries, doctors amputated. Now this master carpenter and avid motorcycle rider will need to find a new profession and a new hobby. A few steps in the Gulf were enough to change Zach's life.
This is horrible. This hurts. You know, I mean, the mental aspect that you have to keep a smile on your face, to go through something like this, I don't know how I'm doing it.
BP